All right, welcome back to the Turks. Now, I've got some fun videos for you guys in a minute. Apparently, Obama's racist. I didn't know that. And apparently, all critics of Fox News are racist. These are fascinating things. We're going to find out about those in a second. First, update from Libya. Gaddafi in a world of trouble. He's apparently putting out offers. You can call them peace offers, which they are. You can call them compromises, because they are. But what it shows you is Gaddafi is probably going to lose. Here's what Muammar Gaddafi is not going to do if he thinks he's going to crush the protesters: offer to leave the country. And that is apparently exactly what he's done. He's saying, hey, let me get out of here, let my family get out of here safe and sound, and let me keep a couple of $1 billion. We don't know the amount, but he said that, of course, he wants to keep the money. And we got a deal. It's your country. I'm out of 5,000. I'll see you later. Apparently, the rebels at this point, their negotiators, have not accepted the deal. So they must really think they've got the upper hand. Look, there's a decent argument to be made that, you know what happened in the past sucks. I mean, it was 42 years of a reign of this dictator. He robbed the Libyan people blind. I got all that. But if you can get rid of him and avoid a lot of bloodshed, I might take that deal, man. But right now, I guess the rebels think they're in excellent shape. What was happening is that rebels are bringing ground troops closer and closer to Tripoli. Obviously, that is significantly unnerving Gaddafi. And he used his air force against them, and he was strafing them. The rebels have asked the United Nations for a no-fly zone to neutralize the one advantage Gaddafi has, which is the air force. If they neutralize the air force, and we agree to then Gaddafi is almost certainly done, given the latest update here. And of course, it's a complicated issue. If we do a no-fly zone, what happens if one of our planes gets shot down? Does that suck us into the conflict more? Nobody wants ground troops. We don't want ground troops going in. The rebels don't want our ground troops. It would just be a matter of the no-fly zone. That's still being debated in the United Nations here and here in the United States. But Gaddafi definitely on the ropes, and we'll see how quickly this thing unwinds for him. But if he's looking for the exit, he's in a world of trouble. So that's your Libyan update. Now here's an update from politics. Down goes Ensign. Down goes Ensign. Senator Ensign from Nevada is retiring. He was thinking of running for re-election. Remember, he got, of course, into an affair. And since he's a Republican, I thought he would survive it fairly easily. It turns out not to be the case. It turns out that this one cost him. Now, one of the reasons is that it was more personal. He had slept with the wife of his chief of staff, and that seems really uncool to everybody. You remember when Gavin Newsom did that, and he was a Democrat in San Francisco, of course, the mayor. That hurt him as well. It hurt his popularity. And because whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, that just ain't cool, dude, right? Everybody knows that. Now, is that really why he went down? I don't know. He ran as a family values guy back in 1994. That's how he originally got into Congress in the first place. He's a hypocrite. Is that what took him down? Hell no. Because that happens a million times in the Republican Party. It never takes anybody down. The only way you get taken down in the Republican Party for having an affair is if you had an affair with a guy. Okay? But if you had an affair with women, prostitutes, whatever, the Republicans don't normally care. My guess as to why he actually is stepping down is because the Republican primary was going to be too hard to win. He's going to have a right-winger go up against him, as is happening all throughout the country. And the right-winger was going to beat the hell out of him for being the establishment guy, being addicted to power, and having all of the, the downsides and the vices of power, including these affairs, right? Now, in the past, the reason the Republicans didn't step down is because they didn't really get primaried that much in situations like this. Instead, all they had to do was beat the Democrat. And beating Democrats is easy. You think the Democrats going to beat you up over your affair? No, they're going to be whips, and they're going to let you get away with it. If I was a Democrat and the guy ran on family values and he had an affair, I'd run endless stream of ads about it. Hypocrite, ensign. Look at how he slept with his friend's wife. This sick son of a bitch, right? But Democrats don't roll that way. They give him a pass. So that's why they never give a damn. The Republicans give it about what the Democrats are going to do to them. And they usually win. Look at what happened to David Vitter in Louisiana. The guy's having sex left and right. He's got the D.C. brothels. He's got the charges of hookers in Louisiana, and he cruises to a victory. The Democrat hardly laid a finger on it, right? If they had a real right-winger in his primary, that was funded, backed, etc., as Ensign looked like he was going to have in Nevada, he might have run for the hills too. Because one side of this politics in America is vicious. And look, it's a contact sport, man. It's politics. I partly don't blame him for being vicious. If you make up stuff, that's terrible, okay? But if you're trying to beat the other guy by any means necessary in politics, I get it. I just don't know why the Democrats don't do it. Unfortunately, I do know it always goes back to the Harlem Globetrotters, Washington Generals thing. These days, the way that the corporations have set up our political system by purchasing all the politicians, the Democrats are supposed to lose. So that's why they send in the clown. Like, I couldn't beat a guy. Family values. Then I had sex with prostitutes. How do I beat him? You beat him by kicking his ass. That's how you beat him. You only lose to him because the system selected a bunch of clowns on the Democratic side. Look, there's a couple of Democrats I like in the country. Otherwise, in the immortal words of Jesus Godoy, they are weak sauce. Every once in a while, I will talk to people that are not familiar with my thoughts on this. And they expect me to be a partisan. Like, be like, oh, rah, Democrats are so good. Golly gee willikers, Barack Obama's a great president. And when I tell them what I think, they're like, really? Like the other day, last night actually, I was on John Batchelor's show at WABC here. That's the largest political talk radio station in New York. And it wasn't even on the air. Off the air, we were having a discussion about, no, it was on the air. I said that Barack Obama is the world's worst negotiator. And John Adlon was on there. He's an independent. Batchelor, I take it he's a conservative, although he doesn't make his opinions very clear on that program. Maybe part of the reason for his success, interestingly, on that station. Anyway, they were like, what? Like, you're criticizing Obama? I'm like, wait till you get a load of us. Are you crazy? And I explained to him, look, the guy gave away $41 billion in cuts and didn't get, a nickel of credit for it. Doesn't it make him the worst negotiator? And they're like, I guess you're right, it does. Look, if they're expecting me to stick up for Democrats because they think I'm on the ideological left, they don't know me at all, man. And, I understand some people get mad about that. Well, they're going to have to get used to it. Obama loves to lose. Democrats love to lose. Look, it's a complicated thing, but I really believe it's because, rich donors and corporate interests, which control 90% of our politics, pick loser Democrats on purpose. If there's a strong Democrat who's actually going to bring change, like Howard Dean, they want no piece of him. Oh, he's crazy, he's radical, he's this, he's that. If there's, a weak sauce Democrat who's like, I'll do my best against a Republican, but I largely agree with him. They're like, oh, fantastic. Give that guy a lot of money. That's usually how it works. Okay. Now, let's go on our videos before I give you the Wisconsin update. Apparently, Michael Shore, former CIA man, we've had him on the show. He's a strange character. He's all over the board. He doesn't fit the left-right spectrum very easily. Agreeing with him on some things, and on other things, he's a crazy conspiracy theorist. And he was in charge of getting Osama bin Laden for a long time at the CIA. I don't know if you know this, but he didn't get him. Now he's got a new theory about how Barack Obama might be racist. Well, oh boy, let's check that out.
Former CIA counterterrorism analyst and the author of the best book on Osama bin Laden you'll ever read, simply titled Osama bin Laden. Michael, welcome to the Glenn Beck program.
Thank you, Judge.
How much of a threat is Muammar Gaddafi to the United States of America at the present time?
Zero, sir.
And what would be the basis, moral, political, economic, or military, for the American president to threaten military action against him?
Arrogance and racism is the answer. Every time Obama opens his mouth, he sounds like a combination of Kipling and Woodrow Wilson. He's going to teach our little brown brothers how to vote and how to elect people. He's really a tragedy for America. He's going to get more of our kids killed in wars that we can't get out of once we start.
Look, if you ask me, should we put ground troops in Libya, I'd say hell no. Now, Michael Shore, as I told you, is a strange guy, or an interesting guy, if you, however you want to phrase it, right? And he thinks getting into Iraq was a mistake. I certainly think getting into Libya would be a mistake with ground troops. But no-fly zones have worked in the past, most famously in Serbia, right? And General Wesley Clark pulled that off, I think, brilliantly. Now, a lot of people say, hey, look, it wasn't perfect. He did this wrong, he did that wrong. But overall, it accomplished its mission without getting ground troops in there and freed people from great crimes against humanity that were being done to them in Kosovo, etc. Right? So it has had some success in the past. So it's an interesting argument as to whether we should do the no-fly zone in Libya or not. It is not an interesting or valid argument to say that Obama is considering it because he's racist. First of all, I don't know if Michael Shore knows this, but as our former President Bush said, Obama is also brown skin. Yeah, I don't think that President Obama is like, I shall be racist against the Arabs and give them my democracy. I know another president who did that, but it's not the direction Obama's going in. If anything, he was slow to, certainly very slow to get into Egypt in terms of even just talking and saying, hey, I'm on the side of the protesters. He was even slow in the beginning with Libya. Now, that turned out to be justifiable because apparently we had American civilians on the ground that he was concerned about, right? But to call him a racist because he's interested in bringing democracy to Libya, that's absurd. It also makes me think, I don't know, what else is Michael Shore getting paid for? Because whenever you have these issues and you see them on television, these so-called experts, be careful. A lot of them are getting paid, okay? Now, I don't know if it's the case with Shore, but a lot of the neoconservatives actually get money from these governments, these Middle Eastern governments, and they're out playing one side or another. And they get money for contracts, for business interests, for oil. Now, I know you know Libya has a lot of oil, so they want to keep that money going, and they don't know what's going to happen with a new regime. They do know what was happening with the old regime. They were making a ton of cash. So people will come on TV and be like, oh, I don't think we should get involved with Libya. I don't know about that. It'd be totally racist to do so. It's because they have a hidden agenda, and it's their pocketbook. Again, I don't know if it's the case with Shore. I do know it is the case with neoconservative Richard Pearl. He got into trouble for that before. But anyway you slice it, Shore's comments about Obama being racist about this are obviously beyond absurd. Now, it turns out President Obama is not the only racist. How absurd. Come on, man. All right, so apparently Fox News critics might also be like racist. That's at least what Bernie Goldberg says. Let's go to that clip. I believe it's clip number 5. Guys, do we have that clip 5?
We're queuing it up.
Okay. Coming up, folks. These are the exciting times of being on Turks.
The best face on it, because those stories don't strike their liberal journalists as terribly interesting or important, even though millions and millions of ordinary middle Americans do find those stories interesting and important. But the second thing he said, Bill, even though he's now weaseling a bit on it, is that he finds the Fox viewers, the regular Fox viewers, to be among the most
cynical people on Earth.
Cynical people on the face of the planet, right? Well, let me tell you something. He doesn't mean cynical. What he's really saying is he finds those Fox viewers to be among the stupidest people on the face of the earth because media elites like Bill Keller have never respected ordinary middle Americans, especially conservative ones. They never found them smart enough, certainly not sophisticated enough, and in the broad sense, they never found them good enough. If they treated black people with the same contempt that they treat conservative middle Americans, they would be called racist. They are snobs of the worst kind.
Now, when you see this kind of a thing on Fox News, all right, Keller, really we have gotten under Keller's skin. Wouldn't you agree? Why would Keller even bother talking about this at a New York Press Club event? Why isn't he just talking up his newspaper? Why is he talking about Fox News? For what reason? So we've gotten under Keller's skin, and I would submit almost everybody over at the New York Times.
So, of course, they were referring to New York Times executive editor Bill Keller there, where he had made some unflattering comments about Fox News. Here's the problem with that. When they do studies of how well informed different groups of viewers are, the Fox News viewers are almost always the most misinformed. So whether it's on weapons of mass destruction in Iraq or just about every other issue that they've tested on, and it's not because they're not paying attention, it's not because they're stupid, it's because Fox News purposely misinforms them. So it's actually not an attack on the viewers, although they should really figure it out. At some point, Fox News is not telling them the truth. They're, at the very least, slanting it and oftentimes lying. It is an attack on Fox News itself. They purposely misinform their viewers, and they shouldn't be surprised when studies come back and should indicate that their viewers are, in fact, exactly misinformed in the way that they had planned. So mission accomplished. So don't go crying about it when people point that out. We're not blaming your viewers, we're blaming you. And then to compare them to racists, well, obviously, to say the least, a bit much. So now, let's turn around and let's give some credit to Republicans, because I'm, and I've said this a million times, I'm not anti-Republican. Republican is just a label. If it's attached to a guy that's doing the right things, God bless. I don't hate the label. I don't hate the team. If it's attached to guys that are doing the wrong things, well, then I'm going to attack the living crap out of them. Now, generally, I've got a lot of issues with Rand Paul and Mike Lee. Rand Paul, of course, senator from Kentucky, and Mike Lee, new senator from Utah. He's a Tea Partier. There's a lot we disagree with ideologically, but apparently we have found something that we do agree on. Let's go to clip number 2.
The president signed an executive order calling for indefinite detention of people at Guantanamo Bay. Stated differently, even if they're tried and found not guilty, he wants to hold them there for as long as he wants to hold them there, something that he spoke out against when he was Senator Obama. Would the Senate be willing to go along with that?
The interesting thing is, I spoke to a mother the other day of somebody who lost someone at 9/11 in one of the Twin Towers attacks, and she said to me she wants justice. And so the thing is justice should be a trial and do something with the people who are responsible for this. So indefinite detention I don't think is a good idea. Let's go ahead and have trials and let's have justice.
Last question, Senator Lee. I know in your youth you clerked for a justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. Do you think the Supreme Court would ever go for something that no Western government has ever claimed, the power to detain, to incarcerate after acquittal? After a jury finds them not guilty, they still go back to jail? What's the sense of having a trial?
Yeah, well, it certainly seems very unlikely given tea leaves that we've been given in the last few years, and particularly in light of the scenario that you painted just a minute ago in your question to Senator Paul, where you have someone who's been tried and found not guilty. Ongoing detention after that seems especially problematic.
I totally agree with Senator Lee and Senator Rand, and God bless their hearts for saying that. Look, again, for the millionth time, I don't care if it's a conservative making it, liberal, Republican, or Democrat. As long as they're making the right point, I'm on their side. I mean, we're supposed to be the United States of America. Indefinite detention, holding people, even if they're found not guilty, that's absurd. By the way, Barack Obama has restarted the military commissions in Guantanamo. He says, oh, no, it was the Republicans who made me do it. Of course, remember, he had a campaign pledge to close Guantanamo Bay within a year. He's partly right. He actually tried to close it down, and the Republicans and a lot of coward Democrats defeated it in Congress. And now, I don't blame him for trying the first time around. The idiots in Washington said, oh, that was a loss for Obama. That was a loss for our country. When the morons of this world won, they said, oh my God, if you try people here in the United States, they might come home for your family picnic. No, we try them, and then we put them in maximum security prisons. What? We're supposed to bring them to justice. Look at me. I agree with Napolitano, Lee, and Rand on that. Every reasonable American conservative or liberal should agree with that. Instead, we had the great majority of our cowardly, propagandist, clownish congressmen and senators disagreeing, saying they were too scared of Al-Qaeda to try them here in the United States, as we've done for centuries when we try the bad guys here, people who committed crimes against us here. Now, of course, what I do blame Obama for is, after that first attempt failed, what did he do? As usual, he gave up. It was too hard. Washington Press Corps gave him a loss on that, and he didn't like it. The Republicans were mean to him. So now he's keeping Guantanamo open. Eric Holder had a comical comment the other day where he said, no, we plan to close it, maybe in the second term. I don't know if you know this, but you're not really guaranteed a second term. You're supposed to be president for these 4 years and give it your best shot. In other words, they're not going to close Guantanamo, and here they are doing military commissions, very similar to what Bush did. They say they tweaked it a little bit. Oh, are you not merciful? And so when Don Rumsfeld goes on TV and brags about how they got Obama to do exactly what they were doing, he's right. Look, President Obama, you've even got some Tea Party people, some Republicans, some libertarians on your side. You want to try? You want to try closing it down again? You want to do it the right way? No, he doesn't. In the parlance of Washington, he doesn't want to burn up political capital for that. By the way, they got people sitting in there for how many years now? 10 years now. And some of them were turned in for a $5,000 ransom. You know, some warlord in Afghanistan didn't like them. He slept with their cousin, or whatever he did, right? And they said, oh, yeah, he's Al-Qaeda, oh, he's Taliban. We never tried some of those guys, and they're sitting in Guantanamo. Now, some of them are massively guilty. Let's bring them to justice. Either way. It's so frustrating, man. But it's good to see at least some people on the right rallying to the right cause. Being ideologically consistent, it's a breath of fresh air. All right, now, to my point on, now we're going to have to say the Coke industry stuff. I'm running low on time. By the way, so let me give you the Wisconsin stories I was going to tell you. But one other note on Obama before we leave that. New York Books Review had an article that said almost exactly what I've been saying about Obama's negotiation stance, but they added one critical part. First, they explained, oh, look, he's given away the $41 billion initially, then he gave away $4 billion, then he gave away $6 billion, all the stuff that I've explained to you, and they're scratching their heads. How can somebody be this bad a negotiator? Doesn't seem to make sense. Again, what they're missing is that Obama's not really on our team. So that's the problem. People like Matt Damon have figured that out. We're going to talk about that in the next hour. But one thing they added was really interesting. They actually talked to a Democratic source, a Democratic senator, okay? So not a Senate aide, not a source on Capitol Hill, an actual senator. Now, he did give them the quote anonymously, but he said to them, look, part of the reason that the Senate Democrats don't try that hard is because it's useless. When we do, and we give up our political capital and we put ourselves in jeopardy politically to fight for progressive ideals, a lot of the time, most of the time, President Obama turns around and agrees with the Republicans and undercuts us. Then we look like the bad guys. We look like we're further left or whatever. They run campaign ads against us, and we got nothing for it because President Obama is going to undermine us anyway. Think about that. That is so devastating because it's not just that President Obama doesn't fight. The way he handles these negotiations, etc., he makes it nearly impossible for the Senate Democrats to fight. No, but don't worry, Obama's going to ride to the rescue. Anybody who still believes that just has absolutely no idea what's going on in Washington. All right, so now, let me give you the Wisconsin updates real quick in the time that we have left. Walker in big trouble. Rasmussen has come out with a poll. Remember, Rasmussen is conservative. They tilt Republican in all their polls. 60% of likely Wisconsin voters now disapprove of Governor Walker's performance, even according to Rasmussen, with 48% strongly disapproving. That means enormous elbow from the sky for Walker. 60% disapproval when he just got elected the other day. 48% strongly disapproving in a conservative poll. Now, it's of all Wisconsin voters, but they, like I said, Rasmussen, conservative. Devastating. weigh in on example is, of course, fighting the teachers' unions. 77% approve of the teachers and the educators in Wisconsin. So Walker, now wildly unpopular, going up against a constituency and a group that is wildly popular in his state, not working out for him. Now, in other polls that also just came out, there's one from Wisconsin Policy Research Institute, nonpartisan. They show that, for example, aid to local governments and schools, 2/3 of the respondents, 67%, say they either somewhat or strongly opposed to reducing aid to those groups. So they don't want to cut education as Walker wants to. Remember, Walker proposed to cut $900 million from education, let alone taking away the collective bargaining rights of teachers, etc. 2/3, 66%, saying they don't want to lay off state workers. 62% saying they don't want to cut Medicaid. 81% favor requiring public employees, and this is goes to the other side, by the way. 81% favor requiring public employees to contribute to their own pensions, while only 18% opposes. So, it's very clear. Wisconsin people saying, look, I think the state unions and employees should contribute to their own pensions. And Walker proposed that, and the unions have already accepted that, right? So everybody agrees. Now they're saying, when you turn to should they take away their collective bargaining rights, we've given you a million polls on that. They say, no way. Should you lay them off? No way. Should you cut their benefits? No, okay? The thing that they're saying is contribute to your own pension and health care. Mission accomplished. Unions have already agreed to it. Now, when you get to Walker himself, oh, by the way, when they ask, and this is critical and always in line with what I say and what almost no one else in the country is saying, when they ask them, hey, how would you solve the budget crisis in Wisconsin? You want to guess the most popular answer? If you've been following the Young Turks, you know what it is. 72% said raise taxes on people making over $150,000. They're very clear on this in Wisconsin. They're clear on it throughout the country. But none of the politicians are willing to listen because they get paid by the people making over $150,000. That is their campaign contributors. That is their bosses. So they're not going to raise taxes on those people. Instead, they're going to go after the teachers. Okay, no matter how unpopular it is with the voters. And finally, from the same Wisconsin poll, Walker has lost 20 points in favorability. He got elected just a couple of months ago. He was at 45% popular, 35% unpopular before. Now it has flipped. He's at 53% unfavorable, some of those strongly unfavorable, and 43% favorable. So he's lost 20 whole points over the span of this conflict. And you know what's happened as a result of these devastating polls? Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, at least 3 Republican state senators are beginning to waffle a little bit. And they're saying, well, maybe a compromise with the Democrats, not so bad. That's what happens. That's politics 101. And you know why it happened? Because actual people got out there on the streets in Wisconsin, and no matter how cold it was and no matter how long it took, they stayed out there. And the Democrats, the 14 state senators that went to Illinois, they fought. They fought by any means necessary, and it looks like they're winning. I hope they stay strong, whether it's the Democrats in that case or the protesters. They finished this because they got these guys on the ropes. It's an amazing job, and it's an amazing story of American democracy working as it's supposed to. All right, now let's give you take a quick break here and then give you an excellent hour when we return.
Welcome back to the Young Turks. Anna and Steve with you.
Good morning.
So there were audio difficulties with Cenk on Skype, and we did not want to have you guys listen to that, so we brought in Steve instead. People love Steve, the audio guy, so he's going to comment on some of the stories that I'm going to present.
I'll try my best. And I don't even have my makeup person today, but I'm a true professional, so I just came on.
You know, Cenk asked me, he's like, are you okay with having Steve do the show with you? And I said, yes!
He said, can't wait.
Can't wait. All right, so let's get right to it. There's so many stories that we haven't gotten to yet. So let's start with Alan Simpson. So Alan Simpson is the co-chairman of Obama's Debt Commission. And he's one of these people who thinks that we need to cut entitlement spending, okay? We need to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of that. He wants to cut it. So he was talking to Fox News about it, and when he was talking about retiring or retirement age Americans expressing their fears about cuts to Social Security, this is what he said. This is fakery. If they care at all about their children or grandchildren, and sometimes I doubt that. I think, you know, grandchildren now don't even write thank you letters for Christmas presents. They're walking on their pants with the cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Snoop Poop Dog, and they don't like them. What? Like, that's your reasoning for cutting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid? Like, that's your response to those people? Like, this guy, why is he on Obama's debt commission?
Well, that's because he has very sophisticated knowledge on pop music and hip hop culture.
Snoopy Snoopy Poop Dog. That's what the kids are listening to these days. That's why we need to cut Social Security. Let's get rid of it immediately.
By the way, how racist was that comment?
Yeah, Snoopy Snoopy Poop Dog.
And the caps on backwards?
Right, stepping on their pants.
Yeah, that's terrible. Okay, look, these guys, Alan Simpson has no idea that people need Social Security to live, to make their, I mean, for their basic necessities. I mean, he's a rich man. He's a millionaire. So he has no idea how important Social Security is for them. See, for him, it doesn't matter. And, you know, his biggest concern is how can he, you know, erase the estate tax so he can pass on more stuff to his kids tax-free. That's his concern, not Social Security, you know, the $400, $500, $600 a month that people get so they can feed themselves and their kids.
You know, it's really interesting that you bring that up, because what I always, this is what I always thought was supposed to happen. Of course, it doesn't happen, but I was always under the assumption that if you are given any political position, it's in the best interest of the American people to not be a millionaire or billionaire, right? Because if you are a millionaire and you're on the debt commission, of course you're going to pass laws, or you're going to push for laws that serve your own self-interest. So why is this person on Obama's debt commission? Like, if I were Obama, he would not be on my debt commission. He would be Audi 5000 immediately.
Yeah, definitely. See, the problem with Alan Simpson and people like that is that they're just out of touch with the average American.
Exactly.
But, you know, the reality is that we're all kind of out of touch, right? You know, I mean, you and I, we have a certain lifestyle that people who are on food stamps just can't comprehend, right? And we can't really fully comprehend what they're going through. So we have a tough time. But we are at least closer to what they go through, and we're more sympathetic than people like Simpson, who have no idea whatsoever. Where they are millionaires, everyone they know are millionaires, and they have gotten campaign contributions from millionaires and billionaires their entire careers. That's what they know, that's what they care about. So even if they are trying to be honest with themselves and they are doing their best, it's not going to be what we want, because their best and what they see is completely different from what most Americans want.
I just think that if you are going to serve on something as important as the debt commission, okay, you should have a certain element of compassion for American people. He does not have compassion. He is only thinking about himself and only thinking about the wealthy, and that's it. Okay, like, we're supposed to be in a representative government. We do not have a representative government. And this is something that Cenk talks about on a daily basis, right? So I'm not going to bore you with it, but it's the truth, okay? Right now, our system is broken because of the fact that people are influenced so heavily by money. That's it. That's all it's about. Like, I can't think of a single representative right now or a single politician who's really looking out for the American people. There's money going straight into their pockets from campaign funders and, you know, millionaires and billionaires, and that's it. Those are the people who are being represented, not, you know, the people that are living off food stamps. And look, I know that we're not in that economic situation, right? Like, I know that we're able to go out and eat without food stamps and everything, but we still have a certain level of compassion for people. And I feel like individuals like Alan Simpson lack that, and they should not be on the debt commission.
Okay, all right, I'm going to stop being Mr. Nice Guy. Alan Simpson, fuck you.
Yeah.
Okay? Fuck you, and here's why, okay? Number one, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
Okay? Number two, it's stupid and completely asinine. You want to cut the debt? Cut the debt, okay? And you do it by raising taxes on those who can pay. Corporations and wealthiest individuals, okay? That's how you want to, if you want to cut the debt for real, that's what you do. These are these are full of shit games, okay? We're going to cut NPR. We're going to cut Planned Parenthood. We're going to screw poor people so they get their money at 69 or 71 instead of 65. And good. Then you can die at 72 instead of 74, whatever it may be. These are bullshit games, okay? And they know, okay? So fuck you for being a liar, and fuck you for screwing over the American people.
No, I love that. That's what I wanted. I wanted that rant. And every single American out there should feel the exact same way that you feel right now. People like Alan Simpson should not be on the debt commission. Obama should be held accountable for this absolute BS. This guy's quote, I mean, it's funny because he's an idiot, but at the same time, like when you really read into it, it makes me so angry because this is his rationale. This is him. This is the way he thinks. Like, these people don't deserve Social Security. They're listening to Snoopy Poop Dog.
No, the whole thing is a goddamn joke, right? If you want to cut the debt, let's get real. Let's cut it. Let's cut military by 50%. Let's raise taxes on corporations and just stop the loopholes, okay? That is what we should do. And, this whole myth of the money trickling down from the rich who create jobs, bullshit,
It is
okay?
bullshit.
Come on. You want to be a leader? If you care about your grandchildren and children like you say you do, then let's get the job done, okay? But these are games they're playing. These are fucking games, and sadly enough, the media plays along, and a lot of people buy into it because they don't think through exactly what's going on.
All right. We did that story pretty well, I think. So let's move on to the next one. A couple of months ago, back in October of 2010, Cenk and I were talking about this 21-year-old woman by the name of Marisol Valles. She lives in Chihuahua, Mexico, and she basically took the job of the police chief in a small town in Chihuahua, right? We thought that it was a disastrous idea because, again, she's 21. At the time, she was a student. She was studying criminal justice. And, this particular part of town is dealing with the drug cartels, right? And drug cartels right now do not care who stands in their way. They will kill that person. They've killed women. They've killed children. They've killed everyone that's stood in their way. So Marisol Valles were like, don't become the police chief. Just don't do it. Right? No one wanted to take that position, so she stepped in. She's like, I want to help this part of town. I want to do whatever it takes to make things better. Well, she immediately started receiving death threats, and she went to the United States seeking asylum. So after she did that, authorities in Mexico were like, okay, well, if she's seeking asylum, then we got to fire her. And then she responded by saying, no, I'm not trying to seek asylum. I'm just trying to help my son get some health attention or some medical attention while we're in the United States, but we'll be back the next day, don't worry. She never returned. She got fired. Best thing that has ever happened to 21-year-old Marisol Valles ever.
All right, a couple of things. Number one, if she planned this whole thing ahead of time to become the police chief, get these death threats, of course she's going to get death threats. I mean, she knew that, right? And then seek asylum in the U.S., good for her. That is brilliant thinking and planning ahead. I love it. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. That's what I mean.
But she's not going to be granted asylum. You know that, right?
Yeah, I know. But I mean, you're right. Then it's bad planning. Okay. If she's successful, then it's good planning. But look, the real tragedy is this. Come on, she's 21 years old. She's a child. She's a student. Okay?
She's 3 years younger than me.
She's going to be the police chief? I mean, this is just silliness.
I mean, it's absurd, but no one was taking the position.
Right, because
there
of the
cartels.
No government. It's anarchy now. I mean, it's run by the cartels. Why not just put in a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old? I mean, who's next? No one, because anyone who is experienced and mature enough knows, don't take that job. Okay, that's suicide. It would take someone who is foolish and naive and inexperienced to think, oh, I can make change. Sure, no. The only change is that you won't be a live person, you'll be a dead person. That's the only change. And it's really sad what's happening there, and I don't really know what the answer is right now, I mean, to be honest.
Well, we've done this story so many times. When we've talked about the drug cartels, the only real solution is to find drug policy that will basically destroy the cartels, and that policy is legalization. And you know, I wasn't buying that at first, but you really realize, like, if people can get drugs from, let's say, the government, right? They're not going to go buy it from the cartels. All of a sudden, the cartels are less powerful, and they're gone. I think that that's probably the only real solution at this point.
You know, I actually totally agree. Okay, on the drug policy, but that's a long-term solution, and that's going to take a while before that happens, and it could get worse before it gets better. I get all that, but what do we do right now? I mean, what do we do right now, tomorrow, next week, next month, in Mexico, in these places where they literally don't have people to fill important and critical positions of government because they are literally too scared. And they should be, because they're going to be murdered. Their families will be murdered. They'll be kidnapped, raped, whatever, decapitated. So what do we do about that? I mean, do we just not have a government in Mexico in big chunks of the country until this drug policy is implemented and a decade or so later it actually starts taking effect? That seems crazy. So I don't know what the solution is here.
So the short-term solution.
Yeah. I mean, that's assuming that the long-term solution actually works, which may or may not.
Well, what's interesting is cartels in Mexico have existed for a long time, right? But things really started to get bad when Calderon launched the war on drugs. So when he got extremely aggressive with trying to catch the cartels, put them in prison, stop drug trafficking, that's when things just blew up. Okay, I remember I was back in Mexico. I was in Mexico in 2007, and it was completely fine. Like, we were in one of the border cities, everything was okay. I didn't even know that they had a cartel problem. And then right after that, that's when they launched the war on drugs in Mexico. I mean, when Calderon got really aggressive with it. And then all of a sudden, you know, it gets really violent and it gets really crazy. So I don't know what the short-term solution is either, but the long-term solution I think makes sense. In fact, I don't know if there's anything else that would solve the problem long-term.
Yeah, you know, we were down there near Juarez. We were in El Paso.
Oh, geez.
And it was for our annual guys trip. And the funny thing is, some of the wives were so scared that we would be stupid enough to go into Juarez, they actually took our passports and hid them. So we would have no opportunity to go into Juarez. Because that's what guys do. When a bunch of guys get together, they do stupid things like, hey, who wants to go to Juarez? Not me. Oh, what, are you scared? You're such a pussy. Okay, I'll go. And then you get shot.
Who are your friends? That's
stupid people like David Kohler and Cenk Uger.
No, I know for a fact that Cenk wouldn't venture into Juarez.
Okay, here's the thing, okay? It's really funny. As our group, as we've aged and gotten married and have kids, we've diverged into two paths. There's the path of, hey, take it easy, let's be safe and smart. And the other half of, let's be daring and crazy. And you know what's the difference? The people with kids, we were calm. We're normal. We're like, no, that's a really stupid risk. Let's not do that. But the ones without kids are like, fuck it, let's just do it. Come on, let's live life.
So Dave is the one who wants to venture into Juarez.
You can ask Dave.
That doesn't make any sense because, first of all, in your dichotomy, there's only one guy on the trip, I think, who didn't have kids, and that's me. And I didn't want to go to Juarez, so it doesn't make any sense. Nobody wanted to go.
All right, it didn't work in this Juarez example, but it worked in this hiking example from Mount Zion.
Back then,
National
yeah,
Park,
because some people didn't have kids, yeah.
Dave's full of shit. Don't believe Dave.
All right, I want to get this last story in, and I'm glad that Steve is here to do it with me because it has to do with children.
Yeah, I was trying to transition to that story.
Oh, were you?
By bringing up the whole father versus non-fathers.
Yeah, pro over here.
I'm thinking ahead.
Look it up in the book.
Like that girl from Mexico.
All right, so John Cloud from Time Magazine wrote a piece on how parents like to exaggerate the joys of parenthood. All right. I love this article, okay? I don't have children, but I always get a little skeptical when parents are like, oh yeah, children, the best thing in the planet. As soon as you have children, your life changes for the better. All of these great things happen. The clouds part and the sun comes down and all of these wonderful things happen, right?
It's almost as good as electing Obama for president.
Almost as good.
Almost as good, yes.
So, so John Cloud basically argues, no, parents exaggerate the joys of parenthood because of cognitive dissonance, right? Basically, having children sucks so bad that parents try to justify the reasons for having children, so they trick themselves or fool themselves into being happy that they had children.
Is that what he really says?
Yes, yes. Okay. Look, he says parents fool themselves into believing that having kids is more rewarding than it actually is. It turns out parents are in a grip of a giant illusion.
All right. Okay, this guy's an idiot. If he
No,
really
no, no.
thinks that.
By the way, it's not like he just randomly wrote some column. He had 2 different studies that backed up this theory.
Look, it's so obvious. I mean, as with anything in life, it's a little bit of both, right? I mean, being a parent is awesome. Being a parent really sucks, right? And depending on the parent and depending on the kids, it goes somewhere in that spectrum, right? I mean, I totally believe that people can have completely happy, fulfilling lives with or without kids. Some people think you must have kids, otherwise your life is not worth living or your life has no meaning. Silly. Silly, 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 right?
I agree.
Yeah, that's just dumb. However, there are those who think having kids ruins and wrecks your life. Absolutely not, right? Look, I have 3 kids. They're awesome, okay? And of course, I'm going to tell you that on balance, my life with the kids is way better than my life without. But my wife and I, we often fantasize about what our lives would be like with no kids, right? I mean, the financial freedom, I mean, just logistically, okay? All right, look, it's a disaster. A couple of days ago, my kids, they got lice from school. You know what a pain in the ass it was to treat it, disinfect our house, pay for the whole thing. And, you know, I sent my kids to private school. It's like $75,000 in tuition money, post-tax dollars. You know what I could do with that money every single year if I could spend it on myself? So, yes, there are a lot of downsides. But let me tell you, okay, when my little girls call up to me and say, you know, Daddy, you know, I love you, and they're being all, oh, it's awesome. So, yeah, it's great and it's bad. I mean, it's so obvious.
Do the benefits outweigh the costs?
For me, definitely. However, what if you had a kid that was a pain in the ass? What if you had a kid that was chronically sick? Or what if you had no money and you had to live in poverty and these kids were a massive financial drain on you and you didn't have any time or resources for yourself? Then it would suck, right? So it could go both ways.
You know, I'll tell you why I bring stories like this up all the time. Like, I'm at this point in my life where I'm 24. I don't feel a rush to do anything in terms of marriage or kids, right?
Oh, you shouldn't.
I don't. I don't feel rushed at all. But I often think about whether or not I want to have kids. Like, I know that I definitely want to get married at some point. But having children is something that's always kind of been, you know, iffy for me. Oh my God, my mom's watching this and pulling her hair out. She's like, oh, please, please don't say this. I want grandchildren. But I don't know, like, I always really wonder what the reality is, because you do get both sides all the time. I get people who say, my life changed for the worst, I freaking hate it, raising kids is a pain in the ass, I wish I had more money, I wish I had more freedom, and then I have people who tell me, like, having kids was the best thing that ever happened to them. And I'm so afraid of dealing with disastrous kids. And I'm scared of the discipline, like having to discipline them. I'm scared of having to pay for, I don't know, lice medication.
Let me tell you. Okay, I really lucked out. My kids are great. Okay, they're healthy, they're happy, they're well-adjusted and well-behaved, right? But what if they weren't? God, it would suck, right? When they get sick, if they just have a cold and they're not feeling good, it's hard, okay? I just can't imagine the pain parents would feel with really sick kids, you know, kids who are on, you know, who have cancer or they need an operation, you know, one after the next. Plus, you know, here's the main thing about having kids, right? After you have kids, your happiness is no longer something that you can control, right? You can't be happy if your kids aren't happy, right? So in that sense, you have this complete loss of control over your own life, which is a big downer. But at the same time, when things are good, I can't imagine it being better. I mean, really, like, God, like, my girls are so sweet, and when they're being sweet and cuddly and wonderful, it makes our whole house seem so nice. Now, getting back to the study, okay, I know what he's saying. A lot of times parents, they don't necessarily exaggerate, but they selectively tell stories about their kids, right?
Right.
They don't tell people the story about, oh, my kid just, you know, crapped all over the place and ruined my new furniture and ruined my whole weekend. That story's boring, right? They tell you something like, oh, my kid just performed in a recital and she was amazing.
You're
right?
wrong. You're wrong.
Yeah.
The story about the poop in the furniture, that is not boring. That is entertaining. The story about the recital, extremely boring, and no one cares.
You're right. You're right. But parents think the other way.
Right.
So they report the good story. They don't report the bad story. So I know what he's saying, okay?
Right.
But I just don't see the need to try to quantify, you know, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Because it varies so massively from child to child, parent to parent, family to family. So it's pointless. It's a pointless study.
All right, guys, that does it for today's show. If you're a member, please stick around because I'm going to do a quick post-game show with Steve. It's going to be great. And make sure you watch Cenk today at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. He's been kicking ass, doing a great job. Dude, I've said it a million times already, but I have to say it again. Cenk has really improved on MSNBC. He's like, I don't know, tearing people apart.
No, he's terrific. And you know what? Actually having you on the show makes it better.
Hey, get it. So make sure you guys watch.
It makes it 2.5 times better.
2.5 times better. All right, so you guys check that out tonight, and we will see you tomorrow morning for another episode of TYT.